and Andy Layhe, as a person who cares about the riders but also cares for clean sports. How comfortable are you by what is actually going on? That there are people who are taken out of the sport by this passport today?
I'll echo what Michael was saying. I mean, it is the most effective tool that we have available at the moment. But one of our concerns is that, carrying on from a discussion that we had through lunchtime, is that, as you know, certain riders, and I think we can agree that certain riders will microdose to maintain a consistent blood profile, and keeping their blood, the biopassport level throughout the season, etc. Yet if they stop doping, you'll see a change in their profile, and it's still a sign that a rider is doping. I think that's alarming, that the biopassport almost encourages riders to continue doping to maintain a steady level in their blood profile.
So when you hear now that this is the best that we have, Landis, what is your response to this? Do you think this is a major step forward?
Well, setting aside the debate about the philosophical problem about what we decided is cheating and what isn't cheating in the first place. I mean, if there was a drug that made people smarter, would we ban that? There's a lot of bicycle racers that are not quite smart enough to win races, even though they're strong enough to do so. Apart from that, I have a few issues with, number one, the way the science is being applied. But my biggest problem, and this I know from experience, and I have to believe that it's applied the same way, with some sort of adjudication of the biological passport as it would be applied to an analytical finding or an adverse analytical finding. And that is that effectively the process is a criminal prosecution ultimately, and the rules of discovery don't apply in any way similar to what would ordinarily be expected if you were accused of a crime. And this is not to say that athletes don't dope, or that there aren't people that dope that would defend themselves in the case that they were guilty. But if you want to have respect from both sides, whether it be from the athletes to the anti-doping agencies or the anti-doping agencies to the athletes, then things need to be transparent. The athletes are expected to tell the UCI or the anti-doping agencies where they are at all times. They're expected to be available and to be honest about everything, and yet you have the case where the anti-doping agencies and the UCI in this case with the biological passport are quite secretive about certain things. And if this is ever going to work, and there's always going to be doping, there's always going to be people that will do whatever they have to do to get an advantage. But if there's ever going to be a system that's at least as good as it can get, there has to be respect on both sides. And in science, in my opinion, science shouldn't hide things. And it's very difficult for athletes, at least, to know exactly what it is that's going on behind the scenes, whether it be with the panel of scientists that want to analyze the data points and decide if one is anomalous, or whether it's just how the tests work at any given lab. And so, from my point of view, the real problem is that there's not trust going both directions here. And that's not to say, again, that anyone here on the athlete side is necessarily trustworthy, but if you're going to hold yourself to the position that you're enforcing ethics and you're enforcing fairness, whatever that is, then at the very least you have to be able to demonstrate that you're trustworthy. And I think that's, right now, that's just not the case.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor?
Aldo Sassi. Well, I think that the biological passport introduction represents a step forward in the prevention of doping, because in my opinion, on the field operated in a right direction, and athletes pay more attention to avoid doping, because even if more cycling says that biological passport doesn't work, they don't believe that it doesn't work. They believe that it works. And so I think he has effectively a detrimental effect on doping practice. Then he is also useful to target better further control addressed more specifically on certain athletes. The method is a method statistics with all his advantage and its disadvantage. I am a researcher, and so I work every day with statistics, even if in this period I am forced to be against statistics, because if I listen to statistics, I should die before the middle of July of the next year. And so I don't want to trust in statistics nowadays. However, I think that the problem is another. Is the problem of the data we put in the black box. Because sometimes I saw that in the blood passport, in the blood passport, and so in the computation were put data collected after 1 week of staying in altitude of 3,500 meters, in which you know that an increase of 3-4 points in hematocrit may happen simply due to a reduction of plasma volume. And I think that this is largely incorrect. So a more strict standardization of the way to collect the data and the condition in which to collect the data should be followed, because otherwise you increase the variability or the values in the same subject, and all the values, the score which comes out are biased of this wrong data input. So I think that the system works quite well, but more strict regulation should be applied for the blood sample.